what Dr. Birx is saying is now is the time to accelerate the fundamental preventive measures that we all talk about: masks, social distancing, avoiding crowds, outdoors greater than indoors, washing hands, etc. Those kind of simple things can actually prevent that uptick from becoming a surge. So she was warning the states and the cities to be careful, because this is a predictor of trouble ahead.
15 days to slow the spread. That's what they said. Coming up on, it might even be today, 150 days to slow the spread. Half a year, folks. Half of a year, 100 days, 150 days after we were told it was going to be just about 2 weeks. And what is the genius advice we get from our public health experts and intellectuals about what we need to do at this point? Masks, social distancing, avoiding crowds, outdoor greater than indoor, wash hands, etc., etc. Somehow we've all been told this for months. We've been doing this for months, and the virus is still spreading all over the place. Except in places where it has spread to such an extent that they've had the worst of the virus already. New York, New Jersey, some other, the Massachusetts, some other place in the Northeast. But everywhere else that hadn't been touched by the virus that much, as badly, I should say, hadn't been hit by it as badly, they're now going through it. And they want to tell us that if only masks, social distancing, avoiding crowds, outdoor greater than indoors. This is more or less the same advice that they were giving everybody in the Spanish flu pandemic of 1918. Did that stop anything? Now, I'm not saying don't take basic precautions and be, pretend that we don't know anything about this and that epidemiologists have no understanding of the most basic aspects of this, although there are some components of basic transmission that they do not understand. I mean, the fact that they can't really tell you if they're going to tell you masks are effective, but they can't tell you a single study that shows how effective they are, then what do they really know about them? That wouldn't be the case. I can't tell you that an antibiotic is effective without being able to show you trials and a percentage of how many people were cured by or helped by that antibiotic, right? But no, with masks, we just think so. There is no proof that this actually helps. There's none. I've never seen it. This is why you have countries in Europe that have said, look, the Netherlands, Sweden, look, the mask wearing, we just don't see it, folks. People can do it if they want, if it makes them feel better. But notice they've also switched back and forth between the psychological benefits of mask wearing and the actual epidemiological benefits of mask wearing, as if we're going to pretend those are the same things. Right? There's actually an interesting study that I saw online of nurses in Canada during flu season, not during this COVID pandemic, during flu season, who were saying, why do we have to, they're being mandated to wear masks in the hospital. And they were the Nurses Association or something of Canada, I forget what it was saying, there's no evidence that this actually does anything during flu season. So, but we're being mandated to wear masks in the hospital all the time. So this isn't actually a new debate. People are going to pretend it's a new debate. This isn't actually just some right-wing conspiracy theory. No, the face diapers that we're all told will save us, they have not managed to save plenty of places that have adopted them with near uniformity, and there are places that never use them that are fine. But there's no explanation for it. We just get told the same things. I just wish that there would be some humility from the people that pretend that they have all the answers about this, who have been wrong and wrong and wrong again. I've told you, I thought it would go down to the summer. It did for a little bit, then it didn't. So clearly there's some different seasonality to this than what you even have with influenza. That was something that surprised me. That was an area that a lot of us, I think, who have been trying to be guided by the there's a difference between data and projections as well. Data is what has happened. You can look at it, you can measure it. Projections are what we think will happen. It's a world of difference. And so much of what has gone on here has been the usage of a projection and pretending that that's data. Now, that's just a prediction, right? If I'm going to buy a share of stock, I'm going to look at the price today. You can tell me what you think the share will be, the price will be in 6 months. You might be right. You're probably going to be wrong. And I would gauge, if I owned a share of stock today, I would gauge its value by what it can be sold for today, not what someone tells me it can be sold for in 6 months. With our pandemic response here, from the very beginning, it was, oh my gosh, this is what the cases will look like. This is what's going to happen to hospitals. Wrong. They were wrong all over the place. Oh, but we're looking at the data. No, you're extrapolating from data and adding a lot of variables you're not accounting for, and then not going back to do an assumptions check, not going back to do a hot wash of why'd you get this thing so wrong? And there's also a panic, I think, among many people, and they're not open about this, but I think psychologically there is, that if in fact what we see is the downward slope in Arizona, the downward slope of cases in Texas, in Florida, which I do think is beginning. We might be a week to 10 days from it being very clear. If that happens, and it's not because of a huge change in policy, and the level of deaths in these places is a fraction per case of what it was in New York and New Jersey, the supposedly great examples of how to handle COVID, what does that say about the people that have been advocating for lockdowns all along? Lockdowns that I just saw today in Maine, the estimate is that 40% of independent small businesses have filed for bankruptcy. I saw that online today. 40 have or will, I believe, file for bankruptcy. That's enormous. How many people have lost their livelihoods over decisions by the state that were rooted in politics and panic? They tell us it's rooted in the science, but Sweden never locked down. Do you know how many deaths they have a day in Sweden for the last week on average? 1. Country of 10 million people, 1 death a day. Sweden is more or less where New York is right now. New York has 8 million people. New York City and this, some of the immediate environs. 8 million people, and we have 2, 3, 4 deaths a day. Some days 0. Is it because we're doing such a great job masking and social distancing here? No, we're actually in a less lockdown state than we were during the height of the pandemic in New York. So does anyone want to try to make sense of these incongruous data points? Anyone want to try to pull all this together? No, just mask, social distance, wash your hands, and you bring the whole thing down. They don't have any answers, folks. They really don't. They don't know. That's the part of it they won't say. And I can tell you that even in dealings I've had with doctors before, they get a lot of them get very uncomfortable with the recognition that they can't really do very much for you, they can't help you, and they don't know very much about what's going on. That knocks them out of their wheelhouse. And Fauci has shown us that there's really very little that he has to offer in a policy sense that is useful or helpful at this point. Right? We had all these lectures about how we need so much testing, and now we're told, well, testing, we kind of missed it with that. A little too slow on that, didn't get it done. CDC messed up the original tests. Japan's a country of 130 million people, never had mass testing, and never had a huge lethal outbreak of this disease. Australia, which we are told is, oh, look at how great they've been in Australia. You know what they're doing in Australia? Locking people in their homes, essentially. There's a curfew at night. This is in Melbourne now. There's a curfew at night. You have to stay in your home. There are all these super strict rules, and the state can check in on you at any time. And we're just like gliding toward tyranny. And people are like, oh, because they say they'll make us safe. Tyrants always say that there's a good reason for the tyranny. It's very rare they're like, yeah, I'm just going to ruin everyone's life because I want power. There's always some explanation. There's always some, oh, this is because we need this. It'll help you. It's for your own good. That should be the bumper sticker for tyrants throughout history. I'm doing these terrible things to you for your own good. I can't believe we're losing our home that we didn't even sell. That's what Deborah said when she found out that she was the victim of home title theft, which is a crime that can actually cost you your home. Here's how it works. Your information's online. The bad guys, cyber thieves, they find that information, forge your signature, and then state that you sold your home to them. You often won't find out about this until the eviction notice arrives. Usual identity theft services don't protect you from this. If you want to make sure you're not a victim of this growing crime, you've got to create a virtual barrier around your home's title with Home Title Lock. Go to HomeTitleLock.com, use promo code BUCK to see if you're already a victim of this, and also to get 30 free days of protection. Home Title Lock are the only people I trust to protect you from home title theft. Go to HomeTitleLock.com. Again, HomeTitleLock.com, promo code BUCK. They want more lockdowns. They want more compliance to the rules. You'd think that if the government's position was going to be that you got to do what they say, you got to give up living your life because everyone's so scared and everything's so awful and all the rest of it, you'd think that at least they would do their part to make sure, right? To make sure that we had the money we needed and, you know, all that, right? That they were getting the payments out to the workers who are unemployed and all. No, Democrats are going to Democrat. Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, are using this moment of national pain as an opportunity to try to extract more concessions from Republicans. They want $1 trillion. They haven't even spent $1 trillion that was already appropriated. We'll talk about that in a second. But they're going to pretend that they're the ones who are not holding hostages when we all know they are. They'll accuse Republicans of. This is the classic Democrat ploy. Here's Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi. Here she is saying that Republicans don't give a damn. Play 4.
Why can't you go across the aisle and say Representative Lewis, civil rights legend, would have loved it if we could do something for the totally disenfranchised in this country, no matter what? Can we give a huge chunk of money to the people who are disenfranchised, to minorities who want so badly to stay in business and can't, and to people who are trying to go to college or have student loans who are minorities, who are the most affected because they had the least chance in our country? That's got to be something both sides can agree to.
Perhaps you mistook them for somebody who gives a damn for what you just described. That's the problem.
Perhaps you mistook them for somebody who gives a damn. That's right. You know who really cares a lot about poor people? Chardonnay socialist Nancy Pelosi from her mansion, flying private back and forth to D.C. She's worth like $50 million, and she really cares.
Nancy Pelosi, the greatest pretense of the Democrat Party's elites are that they care about the rabble at the bottom of the Democrat Party that keeps them in power. They could care less about workers. They look at them with disdain. They look at them as the peasants who have to bring the required portion of their harvest to the Lord, to their feudal Lord, right? That's Pelosi. Well, actually, what Pelosi does is promise to take from other peasants to give to the peasants that vote for Pelosi. But
oh yeah, perhaps you mistook something for someone who gives a damn.
Okay, Nancy, sure. Meanwhile, there is a gap here in the unemployment payments that are supposed to be going out to people who have been directly affected by the government policy to shut down businesses to prevent us from being able to do our job. So now the government's supposed to step in and support those who need it. Pelosi is using this as she has from the beginning of this. She's done this. This is the third time we've gone through this. Republicans like, okay, look, we're in a crisis, guys. We got to get money to people. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's get.
Nah. I want a pony and a castle and a river of chocolate milk.
What?
That's right.
Nancy making unreasonable demands at the expense of the American people. Judy Woodruff is a journo, and she made the mistake of pointing out during an interview with Nancy Pelosi that there's a problem with the Pelosi approach here. There's something wrong with the way Pelosi's doing things because there's money that already's been appropriated. They haven't even spent all the money they've already gotten the government to agree to spend. And it's so telling. It's really so illuminating the way that Nancy Pelosi responds to this one. Play 2.
The other point Republicans are making is they are now showing flexibility in money for state and local governments. This is, again, a difference. Democrats want more money. Republicans want a lot less. They are saying they're willing to show flexibility. And they're also saying a lot of the money that was passed in the spring, Madam Speaker, has not even been spent yet.
Well,
So
if you want to be
is
an
there
advocate
some
for
give
them,
there?
Judy, if you want to be an advocate for them,
No,
let's know what the facts
I'm playing
are.
devil's advocate
No,
here
no, aren't.
to ask you for your position.
If you want to be an advocate for them,
She like flips out at her. Why not answer the question? Oh, you're not. Nancy's expecting Judy Woodruff's a journo, so she's expecting softball. She's expecting that Woodruff, as she would be 99% of the time, is just gonna make sure that Nancy comes out of this looking like she's the good person and Republicans are the bad ones. Republicans are saying, let's get money to workers and we can negotiate everything else, but let's keep the money going. And Nancy is
like, no, the peasants will starve.
why? Because the more suffering, the more misery the Democrats impose upon the American people right now, the better for their election prospects. Democrats are at odds with the interests of the American people right now. Make America miserable again, the Democrat 2020 campaign, unofficial campaign slogan, or at least the campaign strategy. That's what we are going through. That's what we are seeing right now. And Pelosi is just one of many who are operating under that assumption that as long as things get worse for everybody, things get better for Democrats. Oh, Chuck Schumer. We can't leave him out of this as well. Look at who can I just step? Look at the Democrats, who they elevate to positions of leadership. Schumer, Pelosi. People are shameless liars. Shameless, slimy politicians. Untrustworthy, unprincipled. Really. I mean, I mean that. There are some Democrats who are better than Pelosi and Schumer. Not like a lot better, but there are some that are better. But here's Schumer, 16.
The Trump administration and Senate Republicans have badly mauled the body politic, the American economy, and American health care. And we believe the patient needs a major operation while Republicans want to apply just a Band-Aid. We won't let them just pass the Band-Aid, go home, and leave America bleeding. It's that simple. That's the difference. That's the difference. There are huge problems out there. But so many of the Republicans don't want to do anything. Let's not spend any government money when people are hurting so badly. The president just dithers. This is the greatest crisis we've probably had in so many years, and one of the 5 or 6 greatest crises America has ever had. And there is no leadership from the president. He says one thing one day, another thing another day, and another thing another day.
Schumer is such a fluid and capable liar, and his dishonesty is truly of Herculean feat. It's unbelievable the way that he's able to just stare into a camera all the time, which he loves to do, and just tell lies that are a benefit to the Democrat establishment. They always say that Trump has not shown leadership. This is the most brainless talking point that we've heard all year. What does that mean? He has not shown leadership. He's been on TV, pushing policies, getting PPE done, Defense Production Act, working with governors, deploying resources. I mean, who has not? I mean, you could say you don't like some of the leader, but to say he's not shown leadership, this is crazy. This is crazy. But this is their favorite. Oh, even back, I remember when I did Bill Maher's show in, what was it, February? It's, he's not a leader and he lies. That's all they ever say. They're always right in whatever the issue is in their minds because Trump lies and he's not a leader. Oh, yeah, so let's put Biden. Let's put Biden in charge. That'll fix it. I'm not the only one who laughs at the prospect of Biden leadership, as Trump points out here. The Obama-Biden team on foreign policy was disastrous. Play 13.
Country called China. Have you ever heard of it? And the last administration did nothing as they kept on dumping washers into the U.S. market with impunity. The Obama-Biden administration was laughed at. They were a joke, and they were perfectly happy to let China win. Your jobs disappear. and your factory to close. And you know what it was like. I came through today and everybody was out there, tremendous crowds.
The Obama administration on foreign policy was so weak that even their most devoted flacks really had a hard time. I used to debate Obama people on foreign policy when I worked at CNN. I would debate them, and they were remarkably, well, they were inept in general because, you know, they're silly enough to think that Obama-Biden was a smart foreign policy team. So that shows you where their judgment is. But beyond that, they had very little ground to stand on. Syria, disaster. Iraq, disaster. Afghanistan, disaster. I mean, go through the list. China continued to make huge gains against us for all 8 years of the Obama-Biden administration. You know, really what there are a couple of things I've been saying about why Biden is appealing to Democrats, and one that I've left off. I've said it, I think, before, but I should spend more time, or I should give it more attention, is that for so many Democrats, this is just their opportunity for what they see as the Obama third term. They really think of this as an Obama third term. And they're not wrong, not only because this is Vice President Biden's chance to do what you would think, if he was actually a talented politician, would have been able to pull off in 2016, which is run for the presidency and win after having been vice president for 8 years. Clearly, you know, that's always forgotten now. Why was Hillary and not Biden the candidate the last time around? Right. Because everybody who was a Democrat knew that Biden didn't have it. But now that Hillary's clearly not going to be able to run again, hello, I don't know, maybe she will. I'm waiting in the closet. She could just all of a sudden. She's got Epstein witnesses to intimidate. I kid. No, come on. No, that's not. She's not doing that. Right, guys? Right? Tell me right that's correct. So what do I think is happening here? Biden is the third term of the Obama administration, and in a sense that's correct because Biden will do what the Obama establishment, he'll bring in so much of the team. And that is why those who say that Susan Rice and not Kamala Harris will be Biden's VP, one of the big reasons for that is just the optics of the continuation of the Obama team, right? Democrats want that world back. They think that Obama for 8 years was great for the country. I look at it and I say, what exactly went well? What was so great? Slowest economic recovery since World War II, the beginning of the BLM movement and race riots, the disaster in Syria, a lot of mass casualty terror attacks on U.S. soil. Well, what was what exactly were we, expansion of U.S. military operations and wars that have no end? I can't remember what was so great about the Obama-Biden years. Nobody really seems able to make a coherent case to me other than Obama gave such amazing speeches. It was so amazing. Yeah, sure. So he will do whatever the establishment of the Democrat Party tells him to do, and that's part of the Obama term 3, because it doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. It could be a sack of potatoes instead of Joe Biden. It doesn't matter who's running. It doesn't matter who the individual is, as long as they're a part of that apparatus. That's why Bernie Sanders couldn't do it, because Bernie Sanders got his own ideas and is too honest about the Democrat Party's socialist project for America. So we've got Trump saying exactly what's what here, where, he's really not running against Biden. He's running against the Democrat socialist statism of the left. And so we should frame this back and forth in that way. Play 12.
We're running against a radical left ideology. Their messenger is Sleepy Joe. He doesn't know it's his message. He has no idea what the message is. But he's going to do whatever they tell him to do. You know it. Because he's not all there.
Because he's not all there, Trump says. Yeah, it's remarkable. And don't ever forget that Obama, and there was all this reporting on it, that Obama even told Joe, you don't have to do this, which is a polite way of saying, you're really not up for this, man. You're really not up for this. But like I've said, it's the El Cid candidacy Remember El Cid, the Spanish conquistador or Rey Conquistador, who was put on his horse even though he was dead, and they rode him out against the Moorish army and scattered them, and then that was like the last charge in the movie. Yeah, that's kind of the attitude here. It's like, just push Biden out there and like send him out, and we got a candidate, and we'll figure out all the rest later on. Just bums me out too, because as soon as we get through this COVID thing, which is going to take a while longer. I don't think it's going to, we're pretty much locked into this until 2021. I think that's where we are. I think everybody kind of understands that now. Some people say 2021 summer. Some people say 2022. I mean, I think by winter time, assuming that the vaccines are successful, that are out there, we'll be in a much better position. But one of my major concerns is I don't think that the Democrats are going to think of this as just an emergency period where they took all these powers and we just sat around meekly and obeyed. And they'll never do that again. I think they'll say, oh, great. So we can just declare an emergency. We can have Democrat governors declare an emergency for whatever reason, and then just start writing executive orders that can shut down your business, take away your constitutional rights, and people won't even complain about it. And the federal government won't step in to defend them. I think that's one of the big complaints that I have, and I guess people just, right now, a complaint against the federal government to many folks feels like a complaint against Trump. I don't see it that way. We should have federal lawsuits being brought. Protests are okay, but church service isn't. According to courts, this is nuts. We should be suing. We should be trying to use the system for our rights and freedoms, not just allowing Democrats on a whim to take all of them away. That's what has happened here, my friends. You see it. You know. I am disappointed about all this, but I think that if we do get past the pandemic in the way that I think we are getting past it, then the Trump economic policies and approach will be able to bring out all kinds of real benefits for us. I think that I believe him. That's what I'm trying to say when he says that we will be in an economic rocket ship when we get past this pandemic if Trump is still president. Play clip 11.
We're reasserting American economic independence, and I've been doing that from the first day I came into office. To this end, a short time ago, I signed a new executive order to ensure that when it comes to essential medicines, we buy American. The executive order will require that U.S. government agencies purchase all essential medicines that we need from American sources. The executive order will also sweep away unnecessary regulatory barriers to domestic pharmaceutical production and support advanced manufacturing processes that will keep our drug prices low and allow American companies to compete on the world stage.
When you hear Biden talk about the economy, just, workers and, the rich will get taxed more fair share, that's not going to make things better for anybody. There's no real strategy. The Democrat strategy is get into power and then take money from people you don't like and give the money to people you do like more. Do more of that. That's the Democrat strategy. And pretend that investments, meaning government taxation and then spending on favored constituencies or on pet projects, investing in innovation, because, that's really a place where you're going to see a lot of the efficiency in government spending. Investing in innovation is going to make things better. It's a joke, my friends. It's not a funny one, but it continues to be a joke. There's no compelling reason to put Democrats in charge of the economy based on what we have seen and continue to see and hear. But Orange Man Bad, they think, is a very compelling talking point for people going into the election booth in 2020. So we'll see. Whatever happened to the stormtroopers that Nancy Pelosi and other Democrats said were fanning out across Portland and causing the violence? They're causing the violence. But the violence was there for 2 months before they arrived. The violence was there for many weeks before they even involved themselves in it. But somehow, they were the cause of violence that predated them by a long time, which I have to tell you, I think is a pretty stunning trick that federal law enforcement was able to pull. You have Chad Wolf, acting DHS chief, who's saying, no, that's not true. They're not Gestapo or stormtroopers, Democrats. Play 6.
Let me briefly address several inaccurate statements offered by some as events have played out in Portland. Our law enforcement officers are not an occupying force, and they are not serving as a general domestic security agency. They have been deployed for an extended period of time to one city, and that's Portland, and it's to protect federal properties. Our law enforcement officers are not stormtroopers, the Gestapo, or thugs. They are civil law enforcement officers who wear clearly marked uniforms, who are properly trained, who follow established law enforcement procedures and practices, and operate within their authorities. It's been suggested that our law enforcement officers should not be in Portland if not invited by state or local officials. And while our preference is always to partner with local and state law enforcement, enforcing federal law is not by invitation. Unlike local law enforcement, we cannot be directed to ignore criminal activity and actions, and we will never shy away from our statutory duties.
That's the truth of the situation, but you haven't heard a lot of that from the media, have you? You're not seeing such a focus on this. So when the federal law enforcement agents show up, what do CNN and the other frauds do? Oh, that's right. They start claiming the problem is the presence of the federal law enforcement officers, even though the riots have been happening for over a month before they even got there. Mayor Ted Wheeler, Antifa's errand boy, mayor of Portland, he says the rioters are setting fire at a Portland police building. When they were doing that, they were trying to set fire to in East Portland, kind of a suburb just outside the city, I believe. Quote, "You are attempting to commit murder," he said on a broadcast. That's right. Mayor Wheeler is saying, hey, guys, rioters, you're actually trying to kill people because they're trying to light a police station on fire that had people inside of it. Arson, attempted murder. How does CNN report on this? How do they refer to the people who are doing this stuff? Not even as protesters, but as demonstrators. You gotta just look at it in amazement, folks. Body armor, rubber bullets, pepper spray, images of unrest and violence against demonstrators are prompting questions about what police use to quell protests in cities. Yeah, that's right. The problem is the cops, you see. Democrats are nuts. Nuts. Completely insane. But they're never going to learn their lesson on this thing because they won't have to. Because there are enough white lib activist loons out there who really think that if we defunded cops or we got rid of police or we undermined police, things will get better for anyone. It's not true. It's not reality. But this is their position. This is their point of view on it. And it's become mainstream among Democrats. It has become mainstream indeed. But, I saw this too. Feds discovered the most sophisticated tunnel in U.S. history along the U.S.-Mexico border. You know who I'm sure business has been really good for during all this? The cartels. People are in despair. There's such a clear sense that that a lot of people feel like they have no hope, no future. They lost their jobs. They've lost their businesses. And now we see a 1,300-foot underground passageway, according to the New York Post here, stretching from Arizona to Mexico, was just discovered. Federal agents calling it the most sophisticated such tunnel under the border in U.S. history. It ran from San Luis, Arizona to San Luis Rio, Colorado in Mexico. Had a ventilation system, water lines, electrical wiring, a rail system, and extensive reinforcement. Say it is the most sophisticated tunnel they have ever seen. My friends, we don't really have great numbers on it yet, but when you see the number of drug overdoses that have happened during this period of time and the lockdowns that are occurring and everything, all of the costs that we have suffered from, Producer Mark says it sounds like something out of Breaking Bad. But we're not even paying attention to these other challenges that are going on right now. And, the border gets so little focus because we're in the midst of a political fight, and COVID panic sells for the media. They get a lot of clicks out of it. They blame it on Trump. And the cop stuff, they won't, there's no reasoning with the unreasonable. I mean, I can sit here and go on at length about how people who talk about defunding the cops don't actually know what those in high crime neighborhoods want, because they don't want defunding of cops. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They think they're on some kind of a holy mission. I mean, I really do think that, the modern Democrat Party has become a haven for people who have really deep-seated emotional and psychological problems, but they can latch on to these beliefs that Democrats, that they're open about, that this is part of, and they don't feel like they're alone anymore, and they feel like they're on the good guy side. So defund cops. No well-adjusted, intelligent person believes that that's a smart thing to say out loud, but millions and millions of Democrats do. So what does that tell you? What does that tell you, Mary? Well, I think it tells you a lot.